This is Midday Sunday as we talk today about the African heritage of Los Angeles. Our guest is Dr. William Estrada. He is the chair and curator history at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. He is the author of the Los Angeles Plaza, the Sacred and Contested Space, and then this book, Los Angeles' Olvera Street, both available at fine book dealers wherever. Let's tie up a couple of loose ends. First of all, we showed the heads of households, but it comes out to be a total of 44 people. How many of them had African ancestry?
When you do the math and add up all of the adults, there were 11 men and 11 women, 22 children, 22 adults. When you do the math and add everyone up, 26 of the original founders or pobladores of Los Angeles were of African descent.
So that's way more than half.
More than half.
Why did they come here?
It wasn't a random movement. The colonization of Alta, we say Upper California, was part of the colonial expansion of New Spain. Spain wanted to expand its empire and hold on to its land in the so-called New World, because other European powers were also vying for the same property. So colonial Spain initiated a settlement of Alta California or Upper California with missions to Christianize the indigenous Indian population, with military forts. If the missionaries were not as successful in doing their job, they needed protection. And later on, for retired soldiers and their families, the civic pueblos or towns were established throughout California. So Los Angeles was founded as a civic pueblo in 1781. There were others around the same time, San Jose.
And 10 years prior to that, the mission at San Gabriel had been established.
Right, in 1771.
Right.
So that was a part of a very organized colonial expansion. Again, this is world domination that Spain was after, because they were basically vying for the rest of the so-called New World.
You sent along some other artwork that we're going to leaf through kind of quickly here. This being Los Angeles in about 1871, as I recall. It's already a somewhat fairly developed town.
1857.
1857?
Yeah,
okay, okay. And there's the Pico House. The Pico House is significant, and I can tell you was a first three-story building, first deluxe hotel in Los Angeles, and built by
the last governor of California under Mexican rule, Pio de Jesus Pico. And myself and other scholars, I describe Pio Pico as an Afro-Mexican.
And there he is.
Of course, he's there with his wife, Maria Ignacia Alvarado, sitting right next to him, and they're flanked by their two nieces, Maria Ignacia Alvarado and Maria Anita and Trinidad Ortega, who's on your right. And this is an 1852 photograph, and I must say proudly, this photograph, it's a daguerreotype. It's a very, very rare old photograph. It's owned by the History Department, the Seaver Center for Western History Research at the Natural History Museum.
And again, a man of, and there's a picture of
That's
him much older.
In older age.
But a man of African ancestry, actually mixed ancestry, I would imagine.
Mixed ancestry. There's European, there's indigenous Indian, and definitely there's African blood running through his veins. His great-grandparents came to California in 1776 with the settling party of Juan Bautista de Anza. On his great-grandmother's side, she was mulata. Her name was Maria Jacinta Pico. So you can definitely see the African heritage in Pio Pico's portrait.
And I keep coming back to it, but I think it's important. There was no discrimination based upon ethnicity in that period in time, or if there was, it was very little.
No, there was a very elaborate caste system.
Yes, to be sure.
There was a caste system that placed lighter-skinned European-born people at the top of the hierarchy, and the Indian and African at the bottom of the hierarchy. But what was really important to understand is it was an elastic system, especially for those settlers who came to the remote north. how you looked, race and ethnicity wasn't going to be the determining factor in where your life was going to go.
And Los Angeles is the remote north, or was the remote north.
Los Angeles was the remote north, and these settlers came for the opportunity. They had an opportunity to have a new life, to own land. They were promised, and they were given 2 plots of land, animals, and a new life. They were primarily poor farmers, artisans, and a couple of soldiers, but they came here with that promise that they were going to have a better life.
You sent some photos that we've had some technical problems here, so we can't show them. But the descendants of these people are still amongst us, or have been up until fairly recently.
They're still with us, and some of them live more private, quiet lives, and others are very active in Southern California historical circles. There's organizations of founders or pobladores of Los Angeles. They march every year, or many of them do, in the annual reenactment of the founding of Los Angeles.
Right. And over the years on Midday Sunday, just like you are coming back, we have had some of the pobladores on this program. Very, very proud they are of their ancestry. But you talked earlier about how for many decades the ethnic diversity of the settlers was on the QT. People didn't talk about
Hidden.
that.
Sometimes denied. Yeah.
But at the same time, I know from some of our conversations that diversity today is a basis for the strength of Los Angeles.
The way Los Angeles began in 1781, I think is our present reality, or I know it's our present reality, and I think it's our best investment in our future, is our diversity. Yeah, I think that's the message.
But how so?
Because people need to learn to live together, to work together, and these pobladores, these founders in 1781, they all looked different from one another, but they shared a common vision for the future, for their families, and they learned to work together. They started the city of Los Angeles and proceeded forward in a different time, but they learned to negotiate and manage some of the differences of race, of appearance. And I think we can learn some lessons from those early founders of Los Angeles.
When you look at the city today, it's not just descendants of Africans, descendants of Indians, but now we have the Asian component built into all of this, and it works. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And it does reflect even in modern Mexico, because as we have been taught over the years, the modern Mexico is comprised of this convergence between the European and the Indian, right? The a mestizo nation. And what we have forgotten, but scholars today, there's a lot of research being done on the African presence in Mexico. Everything from their historical contributions to politics, to culture, to music, to food, clothing, it's there, and how the people look. So we have 3 streams of people that formed modern Mexico: the African, the Indian, and the European. Now with people from around the world, from Asia, from all parts of the world, and that's what we have here in Los Angeles. So it is sort of a mirror of the past for the present and future.
A favorite destination for a lot of folks, particularly from Southern California, is Cancun, Mérida, all the places along the Gulf of California, the Yucatan Peninsula, and so on and so forth. And you don't have to look very hard to see ethnically there's an African presence there as well.
It's estimated that there is somewhere in the area of 500,000 people throughout Mexico, but mainly in the states of Oaxaca, Michoacan, Veracruz, Campeche, Quintana Roo, Guerrero, who continue with their African traditions as Mexicans, mixed with that heritage. So it is a reality.
Yeah.
The African presence in Mexico.
And then you have the nation of Belize, which is right there in that same general area.
Exactly.
And it is thought of as an African-derived nation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As is Brazil and other parts
Of course,
in the
of course,
Caribbean.
of course.
Yeah.
We have other things to discuss in the limited amount of time we have left. So let's take one more break, and we'll be back in about two.